From 93 million miles away, a colossal nuclear furnace rages. This fiery giant unleashes its energy into the vast, frigid void of space, where it travels at a blistering 186,000 miles per second. This radiant force streaks through the cosmic darkness, unstoppable, unrelenting, destined to sustain life itself. And then, in a single moment, it arrives on Earth. I'm Leslie, and today we're focusing on the Sun, the giver of light to our planet for billions of years, the driving force behind all life, and the star that has shaped Earth in more ways than we often realise. From ancient myths to cutting-edge science, the Sun has captured our imagination and continues to power our world. But what exactly is the Sun? Well, the Sun is a G-type main sequence star, also known as a yellow dwarf. It's about 4.6 billion years old, and like all stars, it was born from a cloud of dust and gas. The process began with gravity pulling this cloud together, increasing pressure and temperature and sparking nuclear fusion at its core. And voila, the Sun was born. To give you some context about its size, the Sun is massive. It's about 109 times wider than the Earth, and 1.3 million Earths could fit inside it. Yet, it's still considered a fairly average-sized star when compared to the rest of the stars in the universe. Now let's rewind a little bit and talk about how humans have interacted with the Sun throughout history. From ancient times, civilizations across the globe have been fascinated by the Sun. Ancient Egyptians worshipped the Sun as the god Ra, often depicted as a falcon-headed figure with a sun disk. Similarly, the Aztecs believed the Sun was a god that needed human sacrifices to rise each day. In other parts of the world, the Greeks personified the Sun as Helios, who drove his chariot across the sky daily. The Sun wasn't just a religious symbol though. By the time we reached the Renaissance, the Sun had become a central focus of scientific study. Copernicus, in the 16th century, shocked the world when he suggested that the Sun, not the Earth, was the centre of the solar system. This heliocentric model was revolutionary and laid the foundation for modern astronomy. Galileo, using one of the first telescopes, observed sunspots and confirmed that the Sun rotates. Fast forward to today, and the Sun remains a central player in our everyday lives. One of the most significant ways the Sun affects Earth is through photosynthesis. Plants have evolved to use sunlight as a source of energy. In this process, plants absorb sunlight through their leaves, which then helps them convert carbon dioxide and water into glucose, food for the planet, and oxygen. Without the Sun, photosynthesis wouldn't happen, and life as we know it wouldn't exist. You might not realise it, but the Sun's light drives almost every ecosystem on Earth. The energy that plants capture from sunlight forms the base of the food chain. Herbivores eat plants, Carnivores eat herbivores, and the energy from the sun passes through these different levels. Without the sun, our ecosystems would collapse. Beyond the basics of plant life, the sun also affects weather and climate. The sun's energy heats the earth unevenly because of our planet's tilt, which is what gives us seasons. It also drives ocean currents and wind patterns, creating weather systems that we experience daily. Let's dive deeper into just how much the sun influences plant life on Earth, specifically in terms of energy. You might already know that plants use sunlight to grow through photosynthesis, but what's remarkable is the sheer amount of energy they capture and convert. Every year, plants capture about 3,000 exajoules of solar energy globally. To put that in perspective, 1 exajoule is equivalent to about 174 billion tons of coal. It's an immense amount of energy that fuels nearly all life on Earth. And what's even more amazing, only about 1% of the sun's energy that hits Earth is actually used by plants. Yet, that tiny fraction is enough to power ecosystems, support the food chain, and produce oxygen we breathe. When plants absorb sunlight, they convert it into chemical energy stored in their biomass, leaves, stems, roots, and seeds. In fact, nearly 90% of a plant's dry mass comes from the carbon dioxide it absorbs and converts into organic matter through photosynthesis. This process literally turns sunlight into physical plant material, whether it's the wood of a tree or the fruit on a vine. The energy plants capture doesn't just stay within the plants themselves. It moves through ecosystems as animals consume plants and are then consumed by other animals. So in a sense, every bite of food we eat can be traced back to the sun's energy. Whether it's fruits, vegetables, or even meat, it all started with sunlight. Even fossil fuels like coal and oil, which power much of the modern world, are ancient stores of solar energy. Millions of years ago, prehistoric plants and plankton captured sunlight, which was then trapped underground and converted into these fuels over time. So whether it's the food on your plate or the petrol in your car, the sun's energy is behind it all. When people talk about their garden being south-facing, they're referring to the direction their garden faces in relation to the sun. A south-facing garden typically gets the most sunlight throughout the day, especially in the northern hemisphere, because the sun rises in the east, sets in the west, and is generally positioned in the southern sky. These gardens are prime spots for sun-loving plants, as they receive long hours of direct sunlight, which helps boost growth and flower production. So, how do you figure out if your garden is south-facing? It's easier than you think. You can use a compass, or even just the compass feature on your phone. Stand with your back to your home and see which way your garden faces. If it's pointing south, congratulations, you've got a sun-drenched space, perfect for growing vegetables, flowering plants and other sun-hungry species. However, not every garden faces south, and that's okay. West-facing gardens get good afternoon light, east-facing ones catch the morning sun, and north-facing gardens tend to be shadier throughout the day. Each orientation has its own strengths, depending on what you want to grow. Now that you know whether your garden gets full sun or more shade, it's time to think about what to plant. Most flowering plants and vegetables like tomatoes, roses and sunflowers need around 6 to 8 hours of sunlight per day. These plants thrive in full sun because they need all that energy to fuel their growth and produce flowers or fruit. South-facing gardens are ideal for these plants. On the flip side, many tropical plants are surprisingly well suited for shady environments. This might sound counterintuitive. After all, the tropics are known for their sun. But many tropical plants grow in rainforests where the tree canopy blocks much of the sunlight. Plants like ferns, calatheas and peace lilies can thrive in low light or indirect light conditions. They've evolved to live under larger trees, making them perfect for the shadier corners of your garden or even indoors. Believe it or not, a plant's leaves can give you clues about how much sunlight it needs. Sun-loving plants often have thicker, more robust leaves that are designed to soak up a lot of light without drying out. These leaves are sometimes waxy or covered in a protective coating, like the leaves of succulents and cacti, which are adapted to handle direct sunlight for long periods. Other sun-loving plants, like lavender and rosemary, have narrow, thin leaves which help reduce water loss in bright, hot conditions. Shade-tolerant plants, on the other hand, tend to have larger, broader leaves. These leaves help the plant capture as much light as possible in low-light environments. You'll notice that plants like hostas or elephant ears have wide, thin leaves that are highly efficient at absorbing whatever light they can get. However, their leaves are also more delicate and can scorch if exposed to much direct sunlight. So the next time you're choosing plants, take a good look at the leaves. It might give you a better idea of whether that plant will thrive in your garden's conditions. Of course, while the sun is the source of life, it also comes with a few dangers. Solar radiation, for instance, can be harmful if we're exposed to it without protection. Prolonged exposure to the sun's ultraviolet UV rays can damage our skin, leading to sunburn, premature aging, or even skin cancer. That's why sunscreen, hats and protective clothing are so important. But did you know that the sun also helps our body produce vitamin D? When sunlight hits our skin, it triggers a process that produces vitamin D, which is essential for bone health and immune system function. It's a delicate balance. Too much sun can be harmful, but too little can leave us lacking this vital nutrient. So how much longer can we count on the sun? While it seems eternal, the sun does have a life cycle. Right now, it's about halfway through its 10 billion year lifespan. Eventually, in about 5 billion years, the sun will run out of hydrogen to burn, and it will begin to expand into what's called a red giant. In this phase, it will engulf the inner planets, likely including Earth. But before you worry too much, remember that this is billions of years away. After its red giant phase, the sun will shed its outer layers, leaving behind a dense core called a white dwarf, which will slowly fade over time. Well, that's it for today's episode. The sun, our star, continues to fuel life on Earth and fascinate scientists and stargazers alike. From ancient myths to modern energy solutions, it remains at the heart of our existence. I hope you enjoyed learning more about the sun and its role in our universe. And thanks for tuning in. And remember to listen out for more episodes where we explore the wonders of plants and science. Until next time, goodbye.